Right, FPL managers, welcome to my first video on my FPL YouTube channel. I've made quite a bit of content last season on FPL TikTok. If you're over there, you may well have seen my floaty green screen head popping up on your For You page. Well, I have now brought in a YouTube channel for next season where I'm going to try and make some more longer form content. I'm not going to say that I'm the best editor in the world, but I'm hoping I'll pick up some of those skills as the season progresses. So thought I'd ease myself in with a Jimmy G's 5 tips for early season success. So what 5 things do I think are key when choosing your initial team? And then in those first few weeks, what is going to give you that really good start to the season? So my first tip, you'll have already seen on the screen here, is saving those chips for the second half of the season. Now, obviously, this is about early season success. And if you were saying you wanted to get a higher rank, then yeah, of course, at the start of the season, playing your chips would do that. But saving your chips will build for long-term success. There are many game weeks in the second half of the season where there's going to be doubles and blanks, and you are going to wish you've saved the likes of your free hit and your bench boost for those game weeks. Obviously, things like your wild card, you're forced to play one of those pre-Christmas, but your triple captain, bench boost, free hit, you are going to want to play them in a double. So resist that temptation when you've got Haaland against a newly promoted team to play that triple captain or anything like that. Save it for the second half of the season. I promise you won't regret it. So on to tip number 2. I would say the best thing to do when picking your first team for the season is to back fixtures over form, except for those real talismanic players. So obviously you've got your big guns like your Haalands, your Salahs, they're fixture proof. But then you got your players that are the talismans in each of their team. They're fine to back as well. But when you're building the rest of your squad, I would really avoid players that were just good for like one season last year. Unless they've got really good fixtures, then obviously back them. But I would lean towards the fixtures more. We even saw how a break, even in the midway through the season for the World Cup last year, damaged players like Almiron. They're fantastic in that first half of the season, then come into the second half of the season and they were not as good. So for that reason, I would always lean to backing the fixtures over some of the end of last season's form, because form is temporary and class is permanent. On to tip number 3. I would say this is the tip that has helped me the most in all of my FPL playing. I never used one before up until last season, but I was using a website like Live FPL. There are many other ones out there, but what websites where you can do a game week planner where you can visualize exactly what your team will look like each week. It will pick up holes in your team that you haven't even realized are there. You might think you got generally good fixtures, but then you might have a week where all your players have got or a number of your players, should I say, have got really bad fixtures all in the same week, or you're going to have benching headaches, and then you might realize that you're actually not even going to play a player for 4 or 5 weeks. They're going to be on the bench. Maybe there's someone else that you can put in their place. So making sure that you're looking over the next 5 to 6 weeks, planning your team out on a website such as Live FPL or one of the many other ones out there, I would say is absolutely crucial when planning your team. Number 4 top tip when picking your first team of the season. I am going to say you also have a squad of 15 players. I think you only need to pick 14 starting players and have a bench fodder pick that is really cheap, unless obviously a 4.5 million striker emerges out of nowhere. I really think at the early start of the season you can get away with just having 14 players. There's no rotation because of Champions League and things like that. We've got no double game weeks, no extra fixtures being crammed in, no cups, etc., apart from really the League Cup. Which a lot of teams don't really take that seriously at the start anyways. And you only really need to start thinking about getting a full squad of 15 players when you want to start playing your bench boost later on in the season, or when the rotation for like the Champions League starts to come in. So when you're picking that first team squad, I would say be fine to go with 14 players. I like to start off with a 3-5-2 and then pick like a 4.5 million striker to sit on that third sub each week. But maybe we'll get lucky and a gem will come out. A bit like Andreas Pereira in the last season where he was a 4.5 million gem. Maybe we'll get lucky with another one this season. And then finally, my last tip for success is to try and limit hits, particularly in game weeks that aren't blanks or double game weeks. I think that's general advice for the whole sort of season. Try and limit those hits to only when there's blank game weeks and double game weeks. They really do add up, and playing aggressively quite often does not work out in the long term. So really be careful when you choose to make those hits. And also, chasing players at the start of the season off of small data can backfire. There is an example last season which I used as Josh Da Silva of Brentford. I think think he scored a couple of goals, but it was off really low XG. Loads of players were diving in to try and get him into their teams because he was cheap and he was going to be the next big thing. But when you looked at his underlying numbers, he wasn't actually that good at picking. It didn't look sustainable an option. So there will always be a player that flies off the blocks at the start of the season, and great if you can get ahead of the curve to get those players in. But make sure you're always checking the underlying data to see if it matches up. Is this player just scored a couple of fluky long-range deflected goals, or is this someone a real deal who's all of a sudden breaking forward, getting in the box and getting in the position to hurt teams? So those are my 5 tips for success. It's my first video on YouTube, so sorry, the graphics and all that aren't the best, but I will improve. I would love to hear what your main tips for success are in the comments, and I would love it if you could also drop a subscribe, and I will be trying to post weekly videos to this channel. I post nearly daily videos when FPL is in full swing on my TikTok channel as well. So thank you all for watching. Check out the TikTok, and I hope you all have a great FPL season.